Tell me you guys love that sweet and savory mix as much as I do, because you know I am crazy about anything that's got that flavor where you're like, oh, it's perfectly savory, oh, it's got a little bit of sweet. It's so good. So I've got this amazing recipe. You guys are gonna totally dig it. It's one of those things you're gonna wanna bring to every party or serve for yourselves at home, spoil yourselves. I'm gonna make for you a fabulous little petite blue cheesecake. I'm actually gonna make little tiny ones. You could make this in a bigger pan if you wanted to. I'm gonna start out with a crust. I've got ginger snaps. I love ginger snaps, and I came up with this idea because I love the idea of ginger snaps, the flavor of that ginger combined with raisins. Yum, so those are golden yellow raisins, and they give this is the crust I'm making, they give it that little extra stickiness. I've got pecans here that I'm gonna put in, and I'm gonna give this a whirl, and then I'm gonna add some butter to it. So I basically wanna whirl this around until it's fairly well chopped. Okay, so around 30 seconds or so, and you're just looking for it to have a very nice, fine consistency, about like this. You know, you guys can see everything is fairly well ground. Then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add my butter, and I've just got a few tablespoons of butter here. And the butter is also gonna give it that little extra hold together quality. So I'm just gonna give this a quick whirl. And that is about it. So now I'll show you, this is perfectly done, and you know, you've seen crusts like this before where it's more graham cracker-y. I just think this is a little bit more interesting. You can tell, look, how I can really hold it together like that. That's what I'm looking for with this. So then basically I'm going to take, I've already buttered this dish. Oh, you guys, I've got to show you what's so cool about this pan. This is actually a cheesecake pan that the bottoms pop out of. How fancy is that? It's so cool, because the great thing about this, when you're done, you just pop them up through the bottom, you take the little bottom off, and they're these perfect little cylinders. I love that kind of stuff because it's just so fancy and fabulous. So all I'm gonna do is put, you know, a good probably tablespoon plus into every single bottom, and once you get that into each one, just press it down real hard. It's gonna seem like a lot of crust to you guys, but it's so great because the amount of crust and then the amount of blue cheese yumminess on top of it is just truly gonna drop to your knees and be screaming over this one. So let me get these in here, and we'll go from there. So basically, you know, I divided all of that scrumptious crust amongst every single one of these pretty evenly, and then you can see I'm just really patting it down. Then we're going to put this into a 325 oven and bake it for like about 8 minutes. That's just about right for it, but just make sure you really pack this down, like I said, because of course you want to have plenty of room for your blue cheese. So let's pop this in the oven, and then in the meantime we will make the blue cheese part. So my crust is out of the oven, my beautiful little crust. Now, one thing I want to point out to you guys is if they feel like a little bit poofy, just take something and just tamp them down, whatever you've got, you know, the end of a wooden spoon, and just tamp them down a little bit. You want them to be nice and flat, not poofy. They really won't get too poofy, and then just set those aside, and let's get on with our filling. So I was just starting to take my rosemary. This filling is so succulent because it does have yummy things in it like rosemary. So I'm just going to take this and just chop it very, very finely, so we don't get any in our teeth. No one wants that in their teeth. But you know, you really want your rosemary to be tiny, tiny, tiny fine. Okay, so again, you want this really nice and fine. I just want you guys to see this so that you know it's going to add this incredible savory, intense flavor to the cream cheese, but look how fine, fine, fine that is. You don't want, and you're only looking for about 1.5 tablespoons of this, so, you know, not too much. Okay, so here's the good part. So I use my big old KitchenAid, but use a mixer, whatever you've got. So you've got about 12 ounces of cream cheese, and I always, of course, it works best when you're making any kind of cheesecake if it's all room temperature. Come on, little buddy, let's get in there and get on with it. You're gonna like this as much as I do. And then you've got some blue cheese, about 3 ounces or so. Just crumble it right in there with all the rest of the goodness. And then I gotta get myself a towel. And then the other good things I add in is I've got a shallot chopped up very finely, you know, really, really small, about a tablespoon and a half of that. Let me get my gorgeous rosemary in there. Hello. And then we've got sour cream, about a 1/4 cup of sour cream. How much is your mouth watering right now? Balsamic vinegar. I know that sounds odd and interesting, but it makes it so, the vinegar just pulls the flavor out of everything else and just kind of makes the whole thing sing like mad. Or like opera. And then you've got your honey. You have to add a little bit of honey in it because it gives it that little bit of sweetness. Now I also add eggs into this. I love honey. I add eggs into this too, but not until I get this whole thing whirling around and get its bad self all mixed up. So let's just get this thing going. It doesn't take too long. I just want to get it mixed up to the point where it's all nice and smooth, which I can tell it already is. I'm just going to scrape down the sides once. All right. So now we're going to put a couple eggs in. Whoops. Come back here, darling. And I always wait until I've got everything else kind of mixed up before I throw my eggs in. So let's get it going again. And then just kind of get the eggs in one at a time. And let those get all mixed up. You don't need to mix it too long once you have the eggs in. Turn it up a little bit. And voila! You've got some beautiful cheesecake mixture. So look at that. Okay. I'm not as apt to lick things once there's raw egg in them. That probably shocks some of you. Okay, let me see if this pan is too hot. No, pan is good. Get my little scooper. And at this point, so here's the deal. You know what? You can fill these almost to the top and you'll be just fine. But look how beautiful this is. And you can see there are little chunks of blue cheese and all that other wonderful goodness. So we'll fill this up and I'll just show you about how high I fill each one. You know, I never worry about the sloppiness factor. You guys know me by now. The goal is that we're just getting this thing done. So get those in there. And like I said, nearly to the top, not all the way to the top, but a little, just leave yourself the tiniest little bit of breathing room. And we'll fill this in. And I did change my oven temperature to 300. It was at 325 when I did the crust, and now I went down to 300 because this takes, you know, I want it just to be a tiny bit lower. So let me just fill these and then we'll pop it in the oven. And okay, so I've got all of them filled. So you guys can see to about, I can't tip it too high, but you know, tip it too far, but you can see they're all basically filled. So again, 300-degree oven, about 30 minutes. And what you're looking for is you just want to see the edge, just the little edge get a little bit brown. They'll kind of poof up in a very pretty way. And when you touch the top of them, they'll feel a little bit sinky, if you know what I mean. So 30 minutes is just about it. So we'll pop them in and then I'll show you how truly luscious it can be. So I baked my little lovely gems for about 30 minutes like I told you guys, and I pulled them out of the oven and then I let them rest for a good another 30 minutes. Now I love serving these room temperature. I just think the cheese and the crust and everything is so good room temperature. That doesn't mean you can't make these day before and then set them out room temperature, warm them slightly. You could totally do that, and I get it, you know, preparing things ahead of time. I like to do that too. But I just want you to see, you pop the bottom up, and oh, I wanted to tell you guys, if you don't have a pan like that, that's totally cool. Just use your regular little mini muffin pan and put little wrappers in it and then peel the wrappers off. It'll just be the same deal. But okay, hello, could those be any cuter? I mean, they're so darling. I love that they're straight-sided too. I think that's darling. But you can see, like I said, how much crust they have, and that's what I think is so yummy about them. So I'm gonna show you a couple of great ways to serve them. So there's two things that come to mind for me when I'm doing something like this. I have some very pretty spring greens, and so say you're having a little party or a gathering and you guys are thinking, oh, I want to make this as an appetizer for that. Pull out a few pretty little leaves and things, because you know, half the deal with eating, of course, is the experience of someone walking up to something and just kind of falling in love with what it is that you've made. And the nice thing about this is you'll be able to make 12 of them, And so you'll be able to, you know, reset your plate and everything, but pull out some very pretty little leaves, right? And then set one of these, you know, you could have whatever kind of, maybe you have a chopping block or something like that, or anything that you have. I like this piece because it gives me the spot for 3 of them. And I've got 3 of these darling little gems here. I put, you know, a few little knives out by them so people can kind of walk up and, you know, take a little bite. I also made a balsamic reduction. So all you do to make a balsamic reduction is you take balsamic vinegar, put it on the stove top on low for a little while, and just allow it to reduce and reduce and reduce until it gets so syrupy and sweet and perfect. That becomes kind of this perfect drizzle. I mean, for anything pretty much, I'd put it on ice cream practically, but you know, it's perfect on these because, you know, you just take the littlest tiny bit of it and just drizzle it around, and it's so pretty. And then, you know, like there's already balsamic vinegar in these, but this just gives you that little extra taste on your tongue that just kind of, you know, makes you fall in love with this even more. So then that's one way to serve this. Another way to serve it is if you're going to do individual serving. So again, you take your little, you know, spring greens, which are very, very pretty. You know, just pour a little bit of olive oil over them. Just, you know, this is a quick, wonderful thing to do, guys. Pour a tiny bit, again, of your balsamic reduction. You know, yum, it's so good. It's so sweet and kind of melts in your mouth. It's so yummy. And then put 1 of these darling gems right in the center. Again, put a little tiny bit more of this around on it. You know, beautiful. And then add some little pear slices here and there, you know, because that's so pretty. And, you know, this can be, you know, a first course or, you know, however you want to serve it. And then, of course, make sure, naturally, as you guys know, make sure you always taste a little bit. But, you know, when you break into this, look how very, very beautiful this is. I'm going to have a little piece with you. We'll share one, okay? And that crust with that wonderful, the raisins and the ginger snaps, and you can taste the shallots. And then, you know, you have a little sip. A little glass of wine with something like this. Good night, Alice. It's so perfect.